So everyone wants to lose weight or look younger, but almost no one is asking the question that actually matters, which is, what happens when you outsource your metabolism to a product that literally hijacks your brain? No one's asking these questions. And today we are talking about GLP-1s and peptides in the illusion that they're natural.
Well, what I'm hearing people say when people approach me about GLP-1s or in defense of peptides, not that I'm anti-peptide by any stretch, but they'll say, Leah, my friend is obese. Would you rather her die? Or my friend is dependent upon insulin. Would you rather her die? And it's like, yes, we actually hear these things, and that they're saying that there has to be something done that is life-saving. And those are the options on the table, like stay obese or take a GLP-1.
Yeah, so desperation is the most profitable business model in healthcare, and GLP-1s are being sold to desperate people as if they're called the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Like that they have to have this in order to get X outcome. And it's just, right. It's not only not true, but when people feel desperate, they're willing to go to extreme measures out of desperation. And this is an example, though, GLP-1s, peptides in general, are example of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And when you do that with your health, like with your finances, you might be able to go into debt and recover from that. With relationships, you might be able to rebuild that relationships when you do that, when you rob Peter to pay Paul. But with your health, there's not a guarantee of a bounce back. There's not a guarantee of a rebound when it comes to going in debt for your health. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about robbing Peter to pay Paul. Every action has a consequence within the body. And this is a bigger one than what people realize.
So you're talking metabolically, like metabolically robbing Peter to pay Paul, living on borrowed debt.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you do that, GLP-1s, peptides in general, and we'll get into what these things are. Because some people, when you say peptides or GLP-1s, they're not real sure what these things mean. Like GLP-1, you might have heard our president call it what does he call it?
Fat drugs.
Fat drugs, and there's brand names to these things.
I heard a joke the other day that said, my stomach is flat, the L is silent.
Took me a minute.
Anyway, I just had to cover up for, the other bad joke. But what I hear you saying essentially is peptides, which I have to admit, before you told me we're going to sit down and talk about peptides, I didn't know that GLP-1, Ozempic, Wegovy, whatever these things are, were the same thing as a peptide. Because I'm hearing natural health influencers all over Instagram touting peptides and hormone replacement, and I didn't know to connect the two.
Right. Well, most people don't, because most people don't make the connection, especially GLP-1s and the idea of peptides. And when you say peptides, a lot of people are like, well, I might have heard that in chemistry or physiology, like peptide bonds. Like where do you get these things? What is, in fact, when I was first told, like, peptides are getting more popular, more and more people are doing peptides. And I was like, doing peptides? I've studied a lot of physiology, a lot of anatomy, a lot of biochemistry and chemistry. I'm like, they're doing peptides. And how do you do peptides? Like, what does that even mean? You do peptides?
What do you mean? You can't find them growing in the garden?
Exactly. Like you're doing a part of chemistry, a part of, a chemical breakdown of amino acids and proteins. Like, what does he mean you're doing peptides? It didn't even make sense at first. Because most people don't realize you don't just go to the grocery store and find these things. They don't exist outside of the body in nature in a peptide form.
Well, I mean, yes, unless you're eating a whole form of food.
Then they're in the whole form of food.
So the GLP-1 drugs, let me get this straight, are patented peptides.
Pharma engineered, patented peptides. Not the peptides that your body makes, not those that are found in foods. They are specifically the ones you mentioned, Ozempic and Zepbound, and those are patented peptides.
When I first heard the peptide craze, everyone's asking, is this really is this really going to make me younger? And look, it's working for everyone. If it's working for everyone else, then I have to do it too. And if it's, there's all these miracle stories about how these are basically a credit card with zero interest. And as an attorney and as someone who's skeptical of any quick fix for health, any hack that saves you the journey, that saves you making actual lifestyle changes, my first thought is, where do you find these in the grocery store? Who is like, what is the natural form of these? Are these in my greens powders? Are they found in nature? And I was shocked when I looked into it, because I don't think most people know the truth about the sourcing of peptides and the lack of, like, the most natural peptides are actually just a mimic of nature.
Yeah. Well, and let's be clear on this, real fast, without getting too technical. A peptide is just a small chain of amino acids. Your body makes them constantly in the form of hormones and neurotransmitters. They are signaling molecules. And here's the key point. Peptides, they don't exist in nature outside of living organisms. Okay. They degrade instantly. This is why when somebody says, I'm doing peptides, I'm like, you're injecting, like, it's like shooting blanks. Like, what do you mean you're doing peptides? They don't, in the form of shooting blanks, in the form of like a pistol that doesn't actually shoot, like what they use in the movies.
I
That's
understand.
the term.
I understand.
That's where that came from.
I'm normally not the one that has the mind in the gutter, but just for one moment, go ahead. So they're outside. They don't exist outside of living organisms.
Yeah, there's no peptide tree, right? There's no like peptide spring water, no peptide berry that you can go pick. So the moment someone injects a peptide, they're not restoring physiology necessarily. They're introducing a substance that the body would never encounter on its own.
Never encounter. Like, what about food? If I want to get more peptides without using an unnatural form, because that's what I'm finding in my research, is that injecting them is highly unnatural. It's intravenous for one, but I mean, I'm sure there might be different forms. But what about food if I want my diet to improve?
Yeah, so you're going to get peptides in certain foods in its whole molecule with the exosome wrapped beautifully in the package that God gave it to you. It would break down when you isolate peptides. This is why they struggle so much and why they have to inject it, because when you try to just ingest it, not inject, ingest it orally, you mean just swallow it, it breaks down instantaneously. Your gastric acids burn it all up. You're not going to be able to get it to where it's supposed to be. I almost said shooting blanks. You're not actually going to get the real thing at the end of the day. That's why they have to try to inject it. And then when they do inject it, now you have to start talking about, how do we make sure this thing is preserved over time?
It's wrapped in something.
And how do we make sure that this bypasses certain defense mechanisms? So you're not just getting peptides by themselves either when you inject them, but that's a whole separate conversation that maybe we'll get to today.
Yeah. So injectable peptides are overriding what? Like, why are they working? Because I don't think we can deny that the peptides are working. I mean, people are losing half their body weight overnight, and you're seeing women who are touting beautiful skin. They're looking younger, and it makes everyone else in that circle want them.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that you can do artificially to get those types of reactions in the body. And that's what it is. It's a reaction. These peptides, and especially the injectable peptides, are chemical signals that override the brain.
Which that shocked me in the beginning of the show when you said override the brain. I thought, surely this is just working on my pancreas.
Yeah, it's not. We're talking about, the difference is body native peptides versus engineered peptides. And what we're really talking about is not the peptides that exist in your body, the ones that show up because it's made in the cell, or it's folded perfectly. That's what in chemistry, that's what it looks like in chemistry. It's folded perfectly, and they release these tiny pulses at exactly the right time. It's a beautiful thing. And by the way, you asked about food. These are dairy, eggs, certain examples. What are some of the other examples? Seafood, flaxseed. These are all high in peptide foods. Exogenous, from the outside, again, wrapped beautifully in exactly everything that you need. And
like a living fish. I mean, the fish isn't alive when you eat it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be if you're one of those guys or girls, but the point is that when it's endogenous inside the body versus exogenous, endogenous, it's perfect and it's timely. The pulsing with the peptides is one of the most important things that I want to just highlight here, because it releases it at exactly the right time, specifically after you eat, and it pulses just a little amount, exactly to exactly the extent to what you need in that moment. It responds to food, it responds to blood sugar, it responds to the gut being stretched, like the actual stomach being stretched itself, a certain neurological input, as opposed to engineered peptide analogs, semaglutides, and the others like some GLP-1 drugs. Those are built in a lab, engineered in a lab. They're modified so they have to be able to last for days and weeks and sometimes longer than that instead of just minutes. They're delivered in a way that the human organism has never experienced in human history. Key point. They have constant exposure. So you remember how I said the peptides are just like these short pulses? It's a constant exposure. It's the difference between like a whisper and a really loud shout, and it's a constant shout. That's the difference between how the messaging works with these two things. So it's like an overriding. So the second one with the semaglutide and the GLP-1s, it's an intensity of signaling because it has to override messaging. You see how that works? So it's intentioned to override brain chemistry intentionally so that you can elicit the response. Because what do people say? Yeah, I wouldn't have lost all this weight without this thing. I don't hear people saying my skin looks better. In my opinion, it looks worse.
Well, the ones who are on the fat drugs, yes,
right.
Their skin looks worse. But I think there are other uses out there to promise brighter skin.
Well, can I say that's why peptides all of a sudden exploded is on the back end of Ozempic. It's because now they're trying to use more stuff in order to make up for the damage that was done, right?
What you're describing reminds me of everything that we've learned about honoring the symphony of the hormones. That it's hard to measure and manipulate a specific sex hormone, so to speak, like testosterone or estrogen, because they're all a part of a symphony. Like there's a conductor of the orchestra, these chemical responses and the rises and falls, and even cortisol is a smart response at the right time and in the right amounts. So when you're talking about these peptides, you're saying that the native endogenous peptides that my body is creating are a whisper, and the exogenous from the outside in are shouting.
That's right.
So even that shows me that if I'm someone who's interested in circadian rhythm and natural foods and rising with the sun, that this isn't exactly leaning into the natural.
No, it's zapping of the hormones. It's like this. It's like blasting your hormones with a fire hose. Like instead of just like a trickle of water, it's like a big fire hose that you're opening them up and just like, all right, we are going to get this thing wet by any means necessary, and just spraying the whole house. And again, there's gonna be repercussions for that.
Some damage.
There's going to be, and that's my caution. You make your own decisions and what people do with the information. But I know just yesterday when we were preparing for this show, you had a lot of questions, and you're a professional at doing research, and you tapped into it for however long, and you're like, wow, I've got a lot of questions, and you're peppering me with questions, to which some of which I'm like, write those things down. So we need to talk about this.
The first thing is, these things are getting really fast results. And I think that's what makes them attractive in our world of bad decisions mounting up to circumstances we don't like, and we need out of it fast. And so it's a question of, why do they work so quickly? And what is how are they made? You know what I mean? I'm still not clear on how these things are made, so I can conceptualize the effects it might have on my body.
Yeah, this is where the people need to see how the sausage is made here. They need to see how the sausage
You're
is
always
made.
telling me, Leah, the sausage making isn't sexy, leave it out.
That's why I'm going to tell you how the sausage is made right now, because of that reason. Because when you see, if people actually saw how these peptides were manufactured with solvents and reagents and preservatives, they'd stop calling them natural in about 6 seconds. Because the reality is you can't make this thing naturally. It doesn't exist in its isolated form outside of the body. So outside of food, you then have to distill it down.
Which reminds you that the word natural is not regulated in most industries.
Right.
So when you're hearing natural, it's mimicking what is natural.
So to make a peptide in a form that is then injectable, regardless of the terminology of whether you say it's natural or not, you have to use synthetic production. It's SPPS. It's part of their processing. You have to do this part. Peptides are built one amino acid at a time with activator chemicals, with organic solvents like DMF and DCM. And then there's the industrial chemistry part, like the chemical modifications. And get this, these raw peptides, they're too fragile to last more than just a few minutes. So manufacturers have to add preservatives and buffers and surfactants and osmotic agents and fatty acid chains of fatty acids to extend the life and extend the half-life. These non-natural amino acids resist breakdown. And here's the point. You're not injecting a natural hormone. You're injecting more of called a Frankenstein molecule whose survival completely depends on chemicals in your body that would categorize them as invaders.
So it's a biochemical construction, essentially, is what I'm hearing you say.
It's a biochemical biohack.
Okay.
As much as you can possibly get it.
And it sounds to me like the same people that are approaching me, asking me about these things, which I haven't really expressed interest in them, but the people who are asking me about them are also trying to avoid all the things you just mentioned.
Correct.
You know what I mean? The surfactants, and they're learning that these things are in their processed foods, or that they're a part of their makeups, and they're trying to use cleaner makeup and cleaner food, but yet aren't realizing that even though this can get your insulin numbers changed, is that a word? Insulin numbers?
Levels, yeah.
Your blood sugar levels?
Blood sugar levels, yeah.
Even though that can change as a result of this, that there's a cost still.
Well, 100% there's a cost. And someone sent me an Instagram influencer who said, and I think you referenced this too. I think the same person sent it to you saying, I'm a crunchy mama and I do all of the crunchy mama things. And she started naming all of the crunchy mama things that she does. Like she doesn't use her microwave as an example. I don't remember all of the crunchy mama things that she did. And she's like, at the end, she's like, and I love peptides. I use them. I promote them. And if I'm somebody who would do it, then you should be too. And I'm like, hang on, you have a microwave?
Well,
okay. So if we're just talking about an anecdotal evidence, like we don't even have a microwave, and I have a lot of questions.
So you should listen to me since I don't have a microwave.
Yeah, I can one up you. I don't even have a microwave.
I think that the logical fallacies, like, come on, let's just teach our kids today what it looks like to be marketed to.
Correct.
Like if this is marketing, not just facts, like we got to go get the facts to make our decisions, not just the marketing. And success stories obviously tell a really compelling story. I mean, but we have to look at the facts and see where this is going to lead us long term, because my understanding is these are pretty new. Mm-hmm. I mean, are there 10-year studies done on the specific uses of these?
Even if there were, define works, define success. Look at the success of these semaglutides and look at the success of GLP-1s and look at the success of peptides. Define success. A measured outcome, because you're thinking allopathically at this point in the terms of like, I am just measuring X and Y and looking at this in a very, I would say, reductionist way of here's the illicit effect and here's what we wanted to see. What about all of the unintended consequences? What about 10 years from now? What does that look like? And how many times have we seen the attorney commercials like contact blank and blank if you've taken this product? Well, there's no whoopsies. There's no whoopsies when you live vitalistically, because you don't fall victim to some of the big marketing things, because you don't hear contact. What's an attorney's name?
I was going to say kin none.
Yeah, contact kin none. Yeah, contact kin none. About flaxseed. If you've eaten flaxseed, no, you don't get that. Why? Because it's in its whole form, and it's really not expensive, and it's easy to access. But when
it's not patented, so who would you be going after if it's not patented?
Right. If you think about the way that peptides, injectable peptides, everything required to just keep it alive long enough to inject it, there's a whole industry just in and of that right there that that people are supporting. And I don't want to come across like as a judgmental, like if you do peptides, you're like not as natural or healthy or vitalistic as you and I. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is there needs to be another non-marketed approach or question or digging into of this topic, because it seems to be very one-sided, that it's all benefits, no risk, and no problems. And it's really just not the case.
Right. And we didn't really want to talk about peptides.
No,
it was
we
a
were pushed into
requested episode. Over and over, people are coming like with their eyes wide, like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say about peptides? Is this the one quick fix that we can finally embrace? Did we find the miracle?
Right.
You know, I think that people are really wanting this information, and that's why we're sitting here talking about it. But if the body runs on rhythm and these peptides are complete saturation, like what is that changing? I mean, people are happy that it's decreasing their appetite, right? From what I hear.
If we're talking about GLP-1s, yeah, but now we're seeing the fallout of all that. Like we're seeing gastroparesis, the complete shutdown of the stomach. We're seeing the liver just completely wrecked. We're seeing all kinds of problems with this.
So you say gastroparesis, which basically means your stomach turns into a brick.
Concrete, yep.
But what we hear in the marketing is slows down your metabolism, slows down your digestion. It's like, wait, when has that been a good thing? Like that you need less food because your system is moving slower. And it's like, no, that's gastroparesis. Like you need things to move through your system. Otherwise, you're not effectively detoxing. You're holding on to toxins.
Right. Well, and when you do fasting, I'm gonna call it fasting. I know like that's a dirty word. People don't want to fast. They don't want to not eat, right? The starvation whole premise, but I think we need to stop also being marketed to on that side of things of like, oh, you're going to starve yourself by skipping a meal. Like try my program that is the non-starvation program where you eat all the time. And if you look at what this looks like, it's usually like astronaut food that's shipped to you anyway, point being, when you fast for even a small amount of time, you get some of the major benefits of all the things that we're talking about right now. So as one clear example with this is when you fast, your body starts to make enzymes that break down not only food, but also with helping with your metabolism and this GLP. Most people don't realize peptides are made in the stomach. And so if you get your gut and your microbiome healthy, and then you start fasting on a regular basis, like all the things that we teach in a stepwise process to reset your nervous system and optimize your nervous system, then work on your gut and then add in micronutrients and make sure that your hormones are optimized in that order, then all of a sudden you're producing these things at the exact right pulses and the exact right inputs. That's not going to flood your system. That's not going to long-term disrupt your hormones. But part of that is you got to know what order you're doing things in, do it in the right order. But then there's never going to be a quick fix. There's not going to be this outside magic bullet that's not going to have some types of repercussions.
We're never going to say in this episode whether you should or should not do peptides. I mean, that's not what we're here to talk about. But based on what you just said with fasting, I would say anyone who's kind of peeking behind the curtain and saying, should I do the peptides? Give yourself a chance. Like commit to yourself to first, before you make that decision, just put the decision on a shelf and do 60 days of a fasting protocol. I'm not going to give you the how-tos because you're going to have to go look for it and get in the driver's seat, but just create eating windows of feasting and famine for the next 60 days and see what changes you notice. I mean, I remember the first time I decided to be on a really strict fasting protocol because I had been doing ultra endurance in breastfeeding and pregnancy and childbirth for better part of 10 years. And then I finally decided I'm going to take care of my hormones. You know, I'm completely done breastfeeding. I'm going to start taking care of my hormones very intentionally again, instead of just letting them cycle through. And within 7 days, I lost the 10 pounds that I wanted to lose. That's fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fast. So you don't have to wait a year to lose that first 10 pounds if you commit to yourself and stick to a plan. It doesn't have to be a year-long game.
Having goals like that, you having a goal, like I'm just going to do this, and people are going to come up to the new year and there's goals. You know, a lot of people have weight loss goals, fat loss goals. I would challenge you, the listener, is what next? Like when you lose 10 pounds, when you lose 20 pounds, what's the real goal that you have? What's the real target that you're aiming at? Because is it just weight loss? But what are you actually trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve better energy? Is it just cosmetically? I want to look better when I look at myself in the mirror. Well, how long do you want to look better when you look at yourself in the mirror? How long do you want to have the ability to look at yourself in the mirror? What is your, not just your lifespan, what's your health span? This is a topic that people are not considering, is what does this do to your overall vitality when you take the shortcut? There's not a shortcut to financial freedom. There's not a shortcut to wealth. There's not a shortcut to have an amazing marriage. There's not a shortcut to raising amazing kids. There's no shortcuts. In health, why would you ever think that there's going to be a magic bullet or a shortcut? Because you've been marketed to. You've been told for maybe your entire life, depending on your age, that there's a shortcut to health, that you can manage your blood pressure with X medication. You can lower your cholesterol with X medication. And it's happy people and throwing footballs and they're running out in the grass and they've got the golden retriever running with them and it's like hugging and happiness. And it's just like, wait a second. There's also the end of these commercials. The end of the commercial, which, come on. How long can we make fun of this until we all just say, yeah, that's ridiculous? But it's not just pharmaceuticals. It's also some of these other things that are marketed to me as natural.
Yeah, that are patented and that are controlling behavior within your body. Not from the inside, but from the outside in. And I think that just asking ourselves, are we supporting our body doing the right thing at the right time?
Yeah.
And if we're not, there's always a fallout, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's just a reality that if we try to manipulate what our body is doing, the right thing at the right time, and people are finally learning driving down a fever is more costly than supporting the fever. And is this going to take another 17 years to uncover that hijacking metabolic responses also has a recoil effect?
Yeah, and this isn't just because we have maybe a non-intervention perspective or minimum intervention perspective. This is bigger than GLP-1s. This is perhaps I feel passionate about this because this is biology, right? And I see it. I'm gifted with vision, and when you combine that with like anatomy and physiology, like I see it. The appetite signaling that's now going to be suppressed, and now vagal tonia is going to be affected. Gut motility is going to be impacted, and then you got the mitochondria demand, the powerhouse of the cell. There's going to have to be an impact on the mitochondria, and then you talk about lean mass preservation. What does that do? That means you're going to have to steal it from bone mass, and then you're talking about the brain effects like ghrelin and leptin and artificial signals. Now that we're now overriding those artificial signals that we've been teaching for years of ghrelin and leptin, these hormones that are signaling to the brain of I'm hungry or don't eat anymore. Those two things like dopamine reward changes are now going to be affected. So there's a spiral thing that happens here that you might, as the end user, might not have the background of physiology and anatomy and understanding of biochemistry. And I'm not saying I'm the best at all of those. I'm certainly not. But I have had all of those things with a fitness background too, that all is kind of gifted me with this vision, be able to see the long-term effects. And we were right about Ozempic at the beginning of it. And I was like, hey, just watch how this is going to affect not only your stomach and turning it with gastroparesis, but watch the liver effects and watch the metabolic demand. And then now watch, you're going to get weird cancers that start to happen because of all this, because of lack of motility.
And isn't it vision loss that people are upset with right now, and brain fog? Like they're associating chemo brain with these patented peptides. And I think what I'm hearing you say is the question is not, does it work with whatever work means to you? It's what system is it reshaping? Like, what is it doing? What is it telling your body? Because you're going to live in this body. You don't want to be at war with it. You're not hijacking your body or warring with your body to have healthy longevity. Come on, let's return to being a beacon of health in this country for ourselves, for our families, that if we want healthy longevity, then we have to understand the impact on the system.
Yeah. And so people are going to say, then what do you do then? You know, like okay. So if peptides are out, okay. And GLP-1s are
We're not saying they are. I mean, it's your information to absorb. It's completely your decision.
Yeah. Well, I want you to catch yourself when you're like, so what then do I do? Because, you know, the health gurus, social media health gurus are marketing these things like their own peptide stacks, like BPC and TB500 and all these new things that are just popping up out of seemingly nowhere. And they're marketing this as if these are natural and gentle, but this is a chemical signal. And I want to be clear. It is not food. This is not food that you're consuming. And any signal that changes biology is going to have an impact. And you can't always undo that impact. You can't always rebound or bounce back from these things. And this is the critical point. So when somebody says, well, so then, Nick, what do I then do? Just do nothing. Sometimes it's just like, stop doing stuff. Like, you're hurting yourself by just doing.
You mean sit on the couch and don't move?
No, what I mean is if you would just stop introducing these extras, like these extras, all these extra stuff is going to have recourse, right? And so, like, not just like stop doing the bad stuff, like stop introducing these extra stuff in, but it's also like, just, you don't have to do anything fast in general. You don't have to make quick decisions. You don't have to click on the link now. You're not going to lose out on the discount. Whatever the thing is that's causing you to rush these health decisions, just pause is my point. Take a step back and just prayerfully consider your next steps for your health. Would that be something that's okay to say here? Like, prayerfully consider what you're going to do for your body and for your health, because your health is your greatest asset.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I understand. It's more about what you don't do than what you do. I know you always say that. And things that are in consideration there are fasting. Don't eat fast food. So that's what you don't do. I mean, start measuring your nutrition decisions against your own standards for yourself. Like, have nutrition standards, have fasting windows, have sleep rhythms, reduce the stress that needs reduced. I've heard people say, well, I have to do the peptides because I've tried to lifestyle my way out of it and my life is just too stressful. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then that's a big consideration. Yep. Like, are you willing to biohack in a way that will have consequences, or are you going to get quiet enough to know what needs to be released, right, to release stress? And I'm not trying to preach it to anyone, but I want people to have the freedom to know that there are options. And if your stress is a thing that is keeping you stuck, we are problem solvers. We are creative beings.
Right. So listen, if you are wanting, what do I do? I'm wanting to lose weight and I want to, look better and look younger. Here's what you do. It's a stepwise approach. It's a system-wide approach. It's the systems. Start with your nervous system, then move into micronutrients, then move into gut optimization, and then into hormones. There's a stepwise approach that has to be considered when you are trying to elicit change with your health for long-term impact. Hormones, though, are downstream to the other things that I named. If you don't have somebody you're working with that goes in that order and can help you with these things, then find somebody who can help you with this. But don't biohack your way or try to DIY your way into hormone optimization. You don't know the types of things that you might be introducing into your body. And if you say, well, I'm going to a guy who is doing these things, great. Is he considering or she considering the order in which the body actually heals, the rhythms in which it actually recycles itself? the rhythm in which the hormones actually work. It's downstream from the nervous system in the brain. So if you're skipping the steps or skipping that step, man, you're not seeing the whole picture here, and you're going to be chasing your tail with these types of this type of symptom management.
Yeah, so that's good. I just want to go back to understanding that if there is an urge and a desire to fix something in your life, you have to first start with, am I going to support the body? Am I going to be inclined to what's natural, or am I going to go the fast route? And that's just your first point of decision. And so there are options, there are things we can do. And you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's our own option.
Mm-hmm.
But the most heartbreaking thing is to work with someone for years that sees transformation in their own life and then falls for a marketing gimmick and comes back in devastated because they're back suffering continually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the saddest part, is when we see patients that experience massive transformation and then one marketing gimmick sends them into a spiral.
Yeah. Try to swipe fast through the ones that you realize are marketing. As soon as you realize it's marketing, and I don't think anyone should really scroll, but if you are scrolling, swipe fast so that the algorithm doesn't give you more of that stuff. Like
they won't be able to read it. I mean, I'm convinced people get on Instagram to be sold. It's like their shopping experience right now.
Yeah. Well, you only get one nervous system, and scrolling certainly isn't going to help you. You only get one metabolism, and so injecting a bunch of extra stuff in there might be a problem. You have one health. It's your greatest asset. And so steward it well, be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, in this sense, take a step back and just pause. And I would consider, I know it's kind of a joke of like prayerfully consider your next steps, but what would be stopping you from doing that? To prayerfully consider your next steps.
And the beautiful thing is, it's not the result that changes your life. It's the journey that it takes to get there. Mm-hmm. And if you are wanting true transformation, if you're wanting true healthy longevity, we have to embrace the journey.
So take a step back, pause, be reflective, prayerfully consider what you're going to do next. But then realize, man, it's not always about just you. There's people in your life that probably need to hear this type of message. Man, how many people are considering right now what the social media influencers are marketing, call it peptides and GLP-1s, without hearing the other side? That's the reason why we recorded this uncomfortable episode, because we don't want to talk about the thing that everyone else likes, and that we are saying, hey, maybe it's not something that is as good as you think it is. Like that's not a position that is that we want to be in, but it's one that we felt necessary voice in this conversation. So if this is an episode that you feel like is worthy of sharing, please do share that with somebody that you know and love, because there's so many people who would be helped by hearing this type of message. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Be intentional. Make it a great rest of your life. This is One Dream. We'll see you next time.